Hello and welcome to Game Talk. It's April 9th, 2023, and I have finished The Other Worlds. I actually finished it last Friday. It was kind of interesting because the game felt like it just kind of ended. I ran out of side things to do. The main quests were wrapping up really quick, and suddenly I was hurtling towards the end game. In a way that I don't remember games like Mass Effect or Dragon Age. I can only remember BioWare games right now. And I don't remember them doing that sort of like, oh, yep, there's the main quest is done, but you still have, 1.5 million other things going right now. I guess this is going to be a review. And then I guess a review. Also, a discussion of why I played up until Friday, which is Mario Kart 8, and then I don't know, try to decide what I'm gonna play next. You've been seeing footage. The Outer Worlds is an open world RPG with shooter elements and a lot of narrative design and sort of freeform systems so that you can move through the world almost however you want. If you want to talk to everyone except for the marauders, you can. If you want to shoot everyone, you can, and you can shoot everyone. I haven't tried it. I've seen other reviewers who have. I mainly haven't tried it just because I don't play that type of guy in games, and I'm not that curious about what happens. So, The Outer Worlds. In my other reviews, I would talk about, I think, these 4 pillars of the game design that I found in a book. The pillars were in the order I remember them. Technology, which is the literal the tech. So in this case, it would be my PC, the game engine, the controller, even down to like microtransactions and stuff. I think would fall under tech. Then the second pillar would be mechanics, which is the kind of the rules of the game, what happens when you press up on the controller. So in many ways, like the game itself. But I think if this were a soccer game, it would be not just what the players in the field can do, but what the ref considers on and off bounds, what the lines are, the shape of the ball, and all of that stuff. All right, the third pillar, if I can recall, is the aesthetics. So this is how the game looks. What game reviewers back when I was a kid, your game spots, your game informers, what they would call graphics. And the fourth pillar. Oh man, it's gotta be a lot of me cutting out, like, not actually remembering. The fourth pillar is aesthetics, mechanics, technology. All right, I'm gonna look at an old review to find it. All right, I got it. Narrative. That's the fourth one. So what's the story? You can imagine different video games having different amounts of these things, different. Like some of them will have more aesthetics than others, or will be all aesthetics and basically no narrative, little mechanics. But The Outer Worlds is chock full of all of those things. I'm gonna start with the worst two things, which is the technology and the aesthetics. Between those two things, the absolute worst is the technology, which The Outer Worlds is the buggiest game I have played in a long time. And I've played some indie stuff off of itch.io that hasn't crashed. I've played well over, and you guys have seen the numbers, well over 1,000 hours of Overwatch, and I feel like I can remember the game crashing maybe a dozen times over that time. Maybe it crashed more often than that, but like during a single play session, maybe one crash. And often it'll be some combination of like the network stack. So there'll be an issue with my router or my modem or the ISP or something. So it wouldn't be entirely Blizzard's fault that Overwatch went down. It's just, didn't help. Weird way to say that. But this game, oh my god, I've had it crash 3 times in an hour. The thing that saves it, it's another bit of technology, which is just it is an aggressive quick saver, which might be why it's crashing all of the time, but like it means I lost no progress. It would crash and I'd be like, oh, okay, I lost. Often it would, ironically, it would often crash around the time when I'm like messing around with level up points. So I wouldn't lose any actual narrative progress. I would just lose the fact that I'd moved points from here to there. So that works out just fine. So it was never really frustrating, but it was definitely noticeable. The other point is, if you've been looking at these videos, the aesthetics of this game are not great. They're very cheap. And by cheap, I mean they took... You could tell that they had a very rigidly sized budget. They didn't have however much money BioWare could blow on a game like Anthem, or however much money that CD Projekt Red was able to blow on Cyberpunk 2077. They didn't have that much money. So you would go through the game and there would be people with the exact same face. Like, they wouldn't look exactly the same. Like, I could tell the difference between them, but I'd be like, oh yeah, it's like they went through and made all of the characters using the end game character designer that they have. So you could be like, oh yeah, I could totally make that character in the designer. I could totally see, like, it's out. Okay, to be fair, they don't do this. They didn't do this with the main party members, who don't really look like anyone else. But everyone else that you see in the game, okay, a couple of more people. I think Chairman Rockwell, and Phineas Wells, and like a couple of other like narratively important characters are pretty unique. But there are a lot of the side characters just look the same. And it is kind of jarring sometimes to be talking to the head of Sublight and be thinking, I think I've seen your face somewhere. I think I shall see your face again. So it's not the worst thing. I think the music is actually pretty good. It sets up the tone. It gets in, it gets out. It's never really annoying. What else? The design of the UI is fine. It's a little busy, but not in overwhelming way. I'm sure there are parts of the UI I never quite figured out what they were for, and so I didn't bother to ever learn what they were for. And so yeah, that from like an aesthetics point of view, I don't think this is a standout game. But they did put in a lot of work. Okay, I lie. Okay, so I did just say the aesthetics were the second worst thing. That said, the work they put into all of the logos and into the sound design, into really reinforcing the main theme of this is late stage capitalism gone wrong, I think that was great. But I think a lot of that ties closer into narrative than into like it's more of a they're telling a good story. They're building out a solid world using their aesthetics, which is what you're supposed to do. And a lot of the sort of 2D art and the kind of graphic design of the logos, I think that stuff is actually pretty good. But it is in contrast to just how jarringly bad the 3D models kind of feel sometimes. No weird pop-in issues like I've heard with the upgrade, Spacer's Choice, but also like nothing to write home about. Okay, so that was technology and aesthetics, the two worst parts. The two best parts, the second best part, the mechanics. So the combat is fine. Like, there's no, aside from the times when, and I think I mentioned this in earlier videos, aside from the times when the game decided that my controller was too low battery to function, which I fixed by just turning my wireless controller into a wired controller. Because I just could not play this game on mouse, board, and keyboard. It just felt wrong. So I switched over to using the controller that way, and it stopped doing it quite as often as it could. And the combat is fine. I never really got super into it. In fact, it's not until the final boss battle, which I think I'll try to have showing right about now. It wasn't until the final boss battle that I was actually challenged in combat. I think at some point I just found super powerful weapons, and that between that and the difficulty I was playing at, which I want to say is whatever they call normal, the combat was just a breeze. We would wander into town, and I was like, and early on I would sneak around, but eventually I just wandered into town, and if they were hostile, we just kill them all. But they give you a few weapons that you can go out there in the world and find that give you some wacky effects. For example, early on you find a shrink ray, which I never quite found a good use for. I think it was more of if you liked hitting things, then with like a melee weapon, then that's what the shrink ray was for. But I think but it did, make things comically small. So I did have a little bit of fun with that. And it's a part of a set of science weapons that you can use to do wacky effects. During that video, this boss battle video, you're gonna see Pravati slamming a hammer down and causing this giant electric wave, which is necessary because I forgot to give my people armor. So they're just wearing the armor that they came with. I eventually gave them something that looked vaguely like armor, but it was, yeah. So when you go through the world and your offense is so strong that you just sort of end fights, you sometimes forget about defense. So that was interesting. But the real highlight for me of the gameplay was just how much it was able to accommodate talking. You could go into a situation and be like, I don't want to kill anyone. You could go into a situation and decide you wanted to kill everyone. I never really did, but the game often gave me at least a solid chance of being able to get people to back down via talking. I did still have to, kill some people. But I think in at least a couple of cases, that was because I hadn't actually buffed the talking skill to a high enough degree. Or actually, so this is still part of the mechanics. So each companion provides boosts to I think 3 of your skills. And towards the end of the game, I believe I had an opportunity to talk down the main villain and keep her from committing suicide by, heavily armed outrounder. But I didn't bring the hacker boost guy with me. Because I didn't know what was going to go on when I went into the last game. And I did actually, we'll get to that in narrative, but because of that, I had to fight this boss battle that's probably still going on. And I regret that a little bit, but approaching this, I think the fact that I was approaching this game as a come what may, not safe scumming kind of thing, I think that was good for me. I think it's a good way to play that way. Because this game is definitely short enough, and that's how I was talking about this earlier, how surprising it was for the game to end that way. I think this game is short enough that you could play it as many times as you want, even with a busy life, and not really worry about yeah, you can play this game even with a busy life. Even though the game crashes regularly for me, it wasn't hard to jump back in. And unlike Prey, there was no part of the game where I felt like there were a million trillion things that the mission tracker was telling me to do. Instead, it was very focused. It was like here are some missions that you do to help out your companions. Here are some side missions, and here are some missions that regard the different factions that you've done. And the main mission is always one mission. It's not secretly. I mean, there are always subtasks, but it's not secretly like you gotta complete all 20 of these missions to do the final mission, which is how Prey started to feel. In addition to the fact that I had never really understood what I was trying to do in Prey. Like, was I trying to get off the space station? No idea. So that's the mechanics. The role play, I think, is really good, and it really tries to accommodate any number of styles, including, just being incredibly dumb. You could also just be an incredibly dumb character. I didn't do that, but that does sound like a time where you can get some ice cream. Narrative. So this is the highlight of it, and I think this is what Obsidian wants to be known for, and I think they pulled it off. I think they managed to really talk about late-stage capitalism and explore these issues without being quite as preachy as they could be. And without, like, the ending is something that you earn. I keep bringing up BioWare stuff, and I'm going to at least one more time, because I played the end. I played the original Mass Effect Trilogy. I got to the end, and I felt like the ending was just beside the point. And I think the reason why that happened with Mass Effect was because by the end of the game, you've really been dealing with so much stuff. So a lot of it was tangentially related, but none of it was like really about the same thing. So, like, by the end of Mass Effect, you will have been dealing with the Turians and the Geth. The Turians and the Geth. Is it Turians? No. Quarians. Something like that. The Quarians and the Geth. And they will be, and like their question of a sort of Hegelian master slave thing, the makers becoming the servants becoming the masters, overcoming the makers who were the masters. But that's very different from what's happening with the Krogan, where the galaxy needed foot soldiers to win a battle, so they boosted the Krogan up into space, and then suddenly the Krogan were a threat, and so they neutralized the Krogans. They started sterilizing the population, right? And then at the same time, you're dealing with humanity's place in the world. Like, do they want more control? Should they have more control? Are they responsible enough to be in control? Which is represented in the fact that your character is a human, a specter, the first of their kind. And then all this in the backdrop of the existential threat that is the Reapers. And I don't know how long it took for me to say that, but that took me like a few minutes to say, right? Compared to the Outer Worlds, where you wake up and the thing you need to, the question that's before you, the first question that's before you is, are you going to help the colony or not? The next question that's before you is, who are you going to side with in order to get the colony back on its feet, in order to solve the problems that have been created by mismanagement and short-sightedness and just plain old stupidity, right? And that's it. That was all of everything else. Even the questions raised by the companions is really in conversation with how those companions fit within the context of this world. A lot of the characters are cut off. They feel like either they don't see how they, a small cog in the machine, can actually affect things. That's Pravati. That's a bit Felix. They've fallen into despair, and they reached out before, but it hurt them so bad they don't want to go back out there. That's Nyoka. Their Vicar Max, who grew on me. Vicar Max is trying to find happiness in the hands of the answer being provided for him. And that's in some ways that's what the corporation, and not in some ways, the corporation is always there to provide the answer. They want to believe in this thing of the plan because they believe that they are operating according to it, that the way things are is the way things should be and the way things have to be. And by engaging with his quest, you really get a chance to really question whether or not that should be. And that, I think that, and how you go out in the world and you deal with all of these factions who, a lot of them are just trying to make their own way, and how you can go in and just be like, I don't really want people to die here, but you can also feel, and you can also see the argument for going the other way in a lot of cases of just being like, why don't I kill the guy who's probably a cannibal? I probably should have killed those cannibals I encountered way back. I don't know what happened to them. I barely went back to that planet. But that's it always felt way more focused. And because it was very focused, when you arrive at one of the 4 endings, what happens makes sense. You're like, oh, okay, we've been talking about this whole time. This is what every character has been engaging with. When I found a solution to the problem, it didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It found like something that I discovered and assembled myself. In contrast to Mass Effect, where you show up and they're talking about, I keep talking about the Hegelian dialectic. The high school version of the Hegelian dialectic is that there are masters and there are slaves. And masters feel superior to the slaves because they usually have something over the slaves that makes them feel superior. But at heart, they know that there's this tension between realizing that the master only exists because of the slave, that the slave could step away, be their own person, and the master wouldn't be able to do the things that the slave was doing for the master, because that's what happened. And in my short little rattling out of all of the different problems and themes in Mass Effect, I mentioned that the Quarians and the Geth are kind of engaging with this. And it turns out that that's that the existential threat is also dealing with this. But it's just like, oh, is that what we were arguing about this whole time? Was that what the discussion was? Because I thought we were just trying to bring everyone together to solve this existential threat, not solve the problem or solve whatever issues that the Reaper have, because we've not been engaging with the Reapers as a meaningful entity. They're closer to climate change. You can't go and argue with a hurricane. So yeah, I think the Outer Worlds narrative is pretty good, and it allows you to think a lot of these things. I guess I am the exact kind of person, I think, who aligns with the devs' views, but I might be wrong. I haven't actually read where they fit on the political spectrum, what they think about things, but it did feel, because I got the good ending, and the good ending is taking down the wasteful corporations. I suspect I know. So yeah, it's a pretty good game. Play it. It won't take long. It'll only take you a weekend if you don't have anything else to do. And do all the companion quests, lean into everything, don't hold back. So last Friday was Good Friday, and I got that day off, so that's when I played the Outer Worlds. And to tide me over and to keep myself from playing Overwatch, I played Mario Kart 8. That was a surreal experience. I bought the game just because I don't have that many party games. And I just thought, okay, we should have more just in case. And I started playing it because I thought I had to unlock stuff, and you do. But if you're playing with people who are casual, they don't care. You don't have to unlock any of the tracks, so there was no effort to be had. And that is a game where I still have all of the muscle memory for it, But oh god, it's gotten harder. Some combination of age and lack of practice has made that game harder. It's also harder when you use the motion controls. Just like there's no real sense of like how far I'm turning the wheel or something like that. I've played multiple sessions or I've played the same Grand Prix twice, and one I played with the wheel and it was just so hard, and one I played with the thumbstick or whatever, and I was just like, oh wait, I'm not that bad. I'm not great. I'm not that bad. I recommend that game too, I guess. It's fun. I suspect Nintendo is preparing us for the Switch being close to the last system that they put out. I don't think that's true. I think they'll come out with something new. They'll always surprise us. But the Switch is just, feels like the last system they ever need to put out. It does everything they want it to do, all the wacky things they want it to do. Let's see if I can remember anything else I was going to talk about. Mario Kart. They announced the new hero for Overwatch, Lifeweaver. He looks cool. He looks hot in like a sexy kind of way. He doesn't look like, fire skin Junkrat. He looks complicated. He looks like he could be used for trolling, but I've been playing this game since 2016. Sometimes people troll. You're just gonna have to roll with it. And at least they can only troll every 13 seconds. All right, so laugh if I missed something at the top of this video, because I'm not gonna go back and check. And have fun. Have fun playing video games. Bye.